Good morning, welcome back to the workshop. In today's episode we are going to build a little house for a little belt sander because I don't like risking my fingers clamping this thing to a workbench when I want to use it or lean over it and getting dust in my eyes and in my lungs. This whole project is going to come from one off-cut piece of 18mm plywood that I have. It's 420mm wide and I don't know how long it is, but I think there's going to be plenty. I start by measuring and cutting out what will be the base or the back of this. I'm going to make that 260mm tall, and that should give me enough space for the belt sander, but also some space around it and underneath it for a little table of sorts. I'm using my Erbauer track saw for these cuts, which you can find a video about up in the top corner. With that cut, I'll take a few more measurements just to make sure I know where I'm going to position the belt sander and what other cuts I need to make to get this thing to work. We skipped a little bit here because the temperature in my workshop as I recorded this and the fact that the camera was plugged in and charging while it was recording meant that it overheated. Screen turned purple, footage was lost. Fortunately, it was only me cutting out a couple of strips of plywood at 120mm twice and 50mm twice across the 420mm width. And then I'm just cutting these pieces to size, which will give me two end pieces. And then a few upright pieces that the dowels will go through, and that will make more sense in a moment. But the ends will also let me fix the uprights too, just to give them a little bit more stability. Then I mark and drill holes for the dowels using a 15mm Forstner bit in my drill press. And with the holes cut, I can trace around a sanding pad for my random orbital sander, just to round off some of the corners, make it a little bit nicer than just some square wood. And I cut the corners off using my bandsaw. If only there was a machine that I could use to make these smooth, easily. With a quick bit of dry assembly, I can see that the front uprights to hold the dowel are ever so slightly too big. So I just take off the end of those and everything's good. This has taken a lot of the movement out of the belt sander as it is right now. And now I can move towards this back section. Now I'm going to have this pivoting on this dowel, and what I would like to do is get a plug through there so I can plug it in and switch it on and take it out if I need to, but also to put a bolt through. Now the back of this belt sander has a small recess that the dust collection bag goes in. I'm going to put a bolt into that to secure it to this pivoting part, just to kind of lock it in place a bit more. To make these pivot, I will round over the corners. Again, it's on the belt sander. If only there were a machine that could do this. And now I can start with the assembly. And we'll start with the front and back pieces, and everything is going to be glued and screwed here. So I mark out where I'm going to drill through, and there's nothing scientific about this process. I just choose 3 points along the width of the board and put a hole through. At this point I realised that I'd like to countersink everything, so I changed the bit for a countersink bit. Countersinks in, glue on, boards together. As the back needs a space for the plug and the cable, I just cut this to length, and then the same process, countersinks, glue, screw. It's pretty much the same process for a lot of the other pieces. It's a case of marking, countersinking, gluing and screwing over and over and over and over again. And here's what I mean about the bolt coming out the back. So I'm going to glue and screw a small block of plywood in between the pivoting part, put an 8mm hole through it for the bolt to go through, and then once that's in place I can use a nut to tighten that, and it will pull the belt sander backwards, which will lock the front of it against the front dowel, and then it shouldn't move anywhere. I will probably replace this nut for a wing nut or something in future. And here you can see just how it goes in and out by tilting and pulling everything out. Simple. I would like this to have a table that I can rest the work against, and also to help me get things square to the sander while I'm sanding. So I need to mark the depth of the table and the height of the table, and just get the dimensions for the things that I need to cut. And then I mark out on the plywood where I need to cut, and cut. And with those pieces cut to width, I will then cut them to length. These will form the legs of the table and the base of the table. Glue and screw the legs and the table together. Check that it's 90 degrees to the sander, which it is, or as close as it's going to get anyway. And then I can give it a test run. Now everything here is fine except I need to use a dowel to pull the trigger and then slide my hand in to do the trigger lock so that it keeps running, and that's just not acceptable. So what I'm going to do is cut a giant hole in the back here, and this is the biggest hole saw that I've got, which is 84 millimeters, and that should allow me to put my fingers through and lock the trigger without having to reach over a moving belt or use a dowel. And now it's all back together. All I have to do is give it a quick reach around and we could switch it on. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please let me know. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.